Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to notify you that I will be splitting my time with the Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, today is a good day in the House of Commons because we, as New Democrats, are forcing parliamentarians to deal with the issues that are concerning Canadians. The motion that we, as a party, are bringing forward for debate today is specifically calling out the massive corporate profits that are occurring in so many sectors, often at the expense of what ordinary Canadians are able to afford. Canadians see this week in, week out. They see it when they go and fill up their vehicles with fuel. They see it when they are at the grocery stores. And it is reaching a breaking point for many families. It is forcing too many families to make difficult decisions. Decisions that no family in a country as wealthy as Canada is should have to make. Decisions on whether their family budgets can afford to pay the rent or the mortgage. Decisions on whether you can get as much fresh produce for your young children as you used to get. Decisions on whether I should only fill the car up with half a tank this week because we need to save money for next week. This is the reality for too many families, not only in my riding of Cowichan-Malahat-Langford, but across British Columbia and across Canada from coast to coast to coast. And for far too long, those Canadians have been looking at the profits that have been made, especially over this year. Oil and gas companies, some which are making more than 100% compared to what they were making just a few years ago. So I hear a lot of talk in this place about taxes, but not enough talk is happening about revenue. The revenue that we are losing, the revenue that would be there to support Canadians who are in dire need of it. Mr. Speaker, it's important that Canadians see that their members of Parliament are addressing their concerns. It's important that they see people that they have sent to this place debating this issue with sincerity, but also with policies that are going to address it. And that is why I'm such a proud member of this New Democratic Caucus, because we have been the only party in this place to call out those massive corporate profits and to champion an excess profits tax. And we will continue to champion that until policymakers see the light in this place and respond with effective policy.
Hear, hear.
I want to segue to a remarkable success that Canadians enjoyed yesterday at the Standing Committee in Agriculture, and I want to thank my colleagues from that committee who agreed to my motion to study the excess profits in the grocery sector in particular. And I want to center particularly on food, because food is the great equalizer in our society. No one can live without food. Everybody needs to eat. But some in our society are able to eat without worry. Others have to make those difficult choices. And when it comes to our nation's children, we know that a healthy and balanced diet is so incredibly important, not only for their growth, but for their ability to achieve a good education. And in a country as wealthy as Canada, far too many children are suffering. If you juxtapose that reality, Madam Speaker, with the fact that the 3 largest grocery chains in Canada have been raking in the money. If you look at Empire's net profits, up by 27.8% in 2 years. Loblaw's profits, up by 17.2% just compared to last year.
Shame.
And Metro, up by 7.8%. And we know the CEOs of those companies. I know the CEO of Sobeys has recently been in the news complaining about us taking an examination of their profits and shining a spotlight on this issue. But if I'm in the bad books of a corporate CEO, I think I'm doing my job properly in this place. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, those profits are publicly available, but I also want to identify the fact that the calls are coming from in the House. Last week, my office received an email from an employee, and I'm going to keep him anonymous, and I'm not going to mention who he works for because he is afraid of reprisals. But I will quote him, Madam Speaker. He said, quote, I have noticed a worrying trend over the last year of large quantities of retail price increases being sent down on a weekly basis. Cost increases on these items don't match the increases of retail prices that are sent down. I have noticed a trend where retail prices consumers must pay for products will increase and cost increases will come down months after the fact, if at all. Based on what I know of our systems at the store level, this means that the profit margins on saleable goods will increase for the company until a related cost increase brings it back down. Thus, prices consumers must pay are overinflated until costs align with retail change.
Shame.
That is why I believe that a federal probe into grocery store price increases should be supported in our parliament. Well, Madam Speaker, let me say to that employee, New Democrats have heard your call. We are taking action and we are leading the initiative in this parliament, not only committee, but in this House of Commons to address your concerns and address the concerns that Canadian consumers have.
Hear, hear.
And we're not going to stop there, Madam Speaker. We are also going to go after oil and gas. It is one thing to talk about the carbon price, a price on pollution. But if you are going to completely ignore the massive profits that oil and gas companies are making off the backs of working Canadians, I think you need to do some reflection on where your policies stand. We are at a point where the CEO of Shell is being more progressive than the Liberals and calling out something that the Conservatives won't even touch. Now, I don't know what kind of a topsy-turvy world we live in when we have to depend on a CEO to be more progressive than our own government. But it is shameful. In British Columbia, my constituents know the price of gas. They see it all the time. But they can also match that up with what large oil and gas companies are raking in right now. And we need to follow the lead of other countries like the UK. We need to implement an excess profits tax. We need to make sure that that natural resource, which by the way is owned by Canadians, private companies get the privilege of bringing it out of the ground and selling it back to us, but that is a resource that is owned by Canadians, and it's high time we put into place policies to make sure that we are getting the full value out of it. And we also heard earlier this week, Madam Speaker, that last year alone, we didn't collect $30 billion in corporate taxes. That's the difference between what corporations actually paid and what they should have paid. So we're having this talk about the structural deficits that we see in our housing, the structural deficits in supporting Canadians who are going through hard times. And you look at what $30 billion in 1 year alone, what that could have paid for. How many doctors could we have hired? How many school food programs could we have implemented? How many workers could we have retrained with that money to prepare them for the 21st century economy? That is the fundamental question before us. It's a question of what we want to be as a country. Do we really want to pursue programs, well-funded programs that help lift everybody up, not just those at the top? I know where I stand on this matter, Madam Speaker, and I hope colleagues in other parties will do some genuine reflection on where they stand as well. Now, we're in a place too where there has been extreme inaction from both the Liberals and the Conservatives. And if you were to follow Conservative tax policy, the Margaret Thatcher cosplay that they are so often engaging in, you need only look to the United Kingdom as to what Conservative policy would result in. The Conservative Prime Minister there has single-handedly caused the UK economy to go into an absolute economic freefall through tax policies that rightly belong in the 1980s and have no place in a 21st century economy, especially when we are trying to address massive inequality. So, Madam Speaker, I know I am in my last minute of this speech, but I want to assure my constituents in Cowichan-Malahat-Langford, I want to assure people in British Columbia and people right across this great country that for as long as I have the privilege of standing in this place, I will never, ever let you down. I will continue to aggressively pursue these progressive policies. I will do it until we actually see the fundamental change that we need to see. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Bravo!
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Kings Hands.